I used to believe I knew my wife completely after 23 years together. Then one ordinary afternoon, I came home early and heard a man's voice coming from our bedroom. What I uncovered about her hidden life shattered everything I thought I understood about love, trust, and family. But that discovery was only the start of a nightmare that would strip me of nearly everything I'd built. My name is Derek Hoffman. I'm 56 now, and this is the story of how my world collapsed and how I eventually rebuilt it from the ashes. 12 years ago, at 44, I thought my life was solid. I worked as a logistics manager for Henderson retail chain, supervising supply operations across the Northeast. The pay was good, the benefits were fair, and I excelled at what I did. I'd started as a warehouse supervisor and, after 8 years, climbed the ladder until management began mentioning regional director opportunities. Veronica was 39 at the time, employed part-time at Chloe's high school as an administrative assistant. Our daughter Chloe, 17, was a senior preparing for college, sharp-minded, ambitious, and eager to pursue journalism. Our son James, 13, had just entered high school, more interested in video games than homework, but a good-hearted kid nonetheless. We lived in a modest 4-bedroom colonial in Millbrook Heights. It wasn't luxurious, but it was ours. After 6 years of mortgage payments, we were finally building some equity. The area was quiet, the schools were strong, the sort of neighborhood where kids still rode their bikes safely. I believed we were happy. Sure, my job kept me busy, and during the peak season I sometimes worked 60-hour weeks. Logistics never sleeps, and when you're managing shipments across a dozen states, problems can arise anytime. I assumed Veronica understood that. The overtime helped fund Chloe's college savings and kept us ahead on the mortgage. The first crack in that perfect picture appeared one Wednesday in March. I got home around 8, later than usual, because of a delay with a Baltimore shipment. Veronica was in the kitchen, barely glancing up when I walked in. "How was your day?" I asked, loosening my tie and grabbing a beer. "Fine," she said flatly, stirring marinara sauce without turning around. "Kids finished their homework. James did. Chloe's at the library." The exchange felt awkward, like two strangers filling silence. I'd noticed it before, but blamed stress. "Everything okay?" I pressed, watching her face. "Everything's fine, Derek. Just tired." But it wasn't fine. Over the next few weeks, the distance between us widened. She went to bed earlier, complaining of headaches. She started keeping her phone with her at all times, even in the bathroom. Conversations about her day became short and distracted. The breaking point came one Friday night in April. I decided to surprise her by coming home early. James was old enough to handle dinner on his own, and Chloe was spending the night at a friend's house. When I pulled into the driveway at 5:30, I spotted a silver Honda Accord parked across the street, a car I didn't recognize. Our neighbor, Mrs. Patterson, gave me a strange look from her garden as I walked to the door. The house was too quiet. I called out her name. No answer. Then I heard voices upstairs. Low, intimate voices that made my stomach twist. Step by step, I climbed the stairs, heart pounding. The voices came from our bedroom. One of them definitely wasn't Veronica's. At the top, I heard her laugh. The real kind, the one I hadn't heard in months. "Derek won't be home for hours," she said. "He never gets back before 7 on Fridays." "Good," a man's voice replied. "I've been thinking about you all week, Ronnie." Ronnie. No one had called her that since college. I froze outside the door, gripping the banister. Part of me wanted to burst in and confront them. Instead, I quietly pulled out my phone and began recording. Through the narrow crack, I saw Veronica sitting on our bed in a blue dress I'd never seen before. Across from her sat a man in his 40s, solid build, jeans, flannel shirt, his hand resting casually on her knee. "Dwight," Veronica whispered. "What if he finds out?" "He won't," Dwight said. "A guy like that, head buried in spreadsheets, he wouldn't notice if the house was on fire." The words hit like a hammer. A stranger in my room, dismissing me as if I didn't exist, while my wife let him. "You're right," Veronica replied. "Derek lives for that job. Sometimes I feel like I'm married to Henderson Retail instead of a man." I'd heard enough. I backed away quietly, trembling, 23 years of marriage reduced to mockery in my own home. I went outside, sat in my truck, and called my brother Mike. "Derek," he answered. "What's wrong? You sound awful." "If Sarah were cheating on you," I asked, voice shaking, "what would you do?" A long pause. "Brother, what's going on?" I told him everything. He listened silently, then said, "First, don't do anything reckless while you're angry. Second, you need proof. More proof. That recording is a good start," Mike told me. "But you need to document everything, times, dates, places. Keep records." "What about the kids?" I asked. "They don't need to know yet. Not until you decide your next move." "But Derek, you can't keep pretending nothing's happening." At 6:15 that evening, I watched Dwight walk out of my house, kiss Veronica on our front porch, and drive away in that same silver Honda. I sat there for 10 long minutes before going back inside. Veronica was in the kitchen, calmly preparing dinner, as if nothing had happened. "You're home early," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Yeah," I replied, studying her expression. "Slow day at the warehouse." She just nodded, chopping vegetables as if she hadn't just betrayed me in our own bed. The next week was torture. I went through the motions at work, managing shipments, scheduling deliveries, but my mind wasn't there. Every time my phone buzzed, I wondered if it was her texting Dwight. Every night when I came home, I looked for signs he'd been there. Mike gave me the number of a private investigator, Tom Walsh. He specialized in marital cases. Tom was a former cop, built like a linebacker but with sharp, steady eyes. We met at a small diner during my lunch break. "Your brother filled me in," Tom said as he slid into the booth. "Before I start, you need to understand. Once I begin digging, there's no turning back. You'll find out things you may not want to know." "I already know she's cheating," I said quietly. "I just need proof that will stand in court." Tom nodded and pulled out a notebook. "Tell me about this Dwight guy. Full name, where he works, what he drives." I told him everything I knew. He took careful notes, asking about times, patterns, and habits. "Here's what I'll do," he said. "I'll follow your wife for a week, record where she goes, who she meets, how long she stays. I'll also run a background check on Dwight Grimm. You might be surprised what comes up." "What do you mean?" I asked. "Men like him usually have a history. This probably isn't his first affair. Guys who chase married women rarely stop at one." 3 days later, Tom called with his preliminary report. Dwight Grimm, 46, divorced twice, worked as a regional sales manager for a plumbing supply company. 2 DUIs. Behind on child support for both ex-wives. "Real gentleman," Tom said dryly. "But here's the interesting part. He's actually been married 3 times, not 2. His current wife doesn't know about the other divorces. Filed for bankruptcy 2 years ago, but somehow still has his job." "Current wife?" I asked, stunned. "Yeah," Tom said. "Married to a woman named Janet for 8 months. Lives in Riverside, about 20 minutes from your place." My stomach dropped. Veronica wasn't just cheating on me. She was helping Dwight cheat on his own wife. The betrayal felt colder, more deliberate. "There's more," Tom continued. "Yesterday, I followed your wife to the Marriott on Route 9. She met Dwight there. They stayed 2 hours. I've got photos, timestamps, license plates. Derek, this isn't just emotional anymore." That night, I sat in my truck outside the house for 15 minutes before going in. Chloe was at the kitchen table working on college applications. James was on the couch playing video games. Veronica was upstairs with another headache. "Dad," Chloe said without looking up, "is everything okay? You and Mom seem off lately." She was perceptive, always had been. She could read people better than anyone. "Just work stress, sweetheart," I lied. "How are the applications going?" "Good. I should hear back from state next month." I watched her for a moment, my bright, determined daughter about to begin her own life, and felt a surge of fierce protectiveness. Whatever happened between Veronica and me, I wouldn't let it wreck our kids' futures. 2 weeks after hiring Tom Walsh, I had enough evidence to crush Veronica in divorce court. Photos, receipts, hotel records, phone logs. But instead of feeling triumphant, I felt hollow. 23 years of marriage, reduced to a manila folder full of betrayal. The final breaking point came on a Thursday night. I'd actually been working late, dealing with a major shipping delay that rippled through our entire division. When I got home around 9:30, the house was dark except for the glow of the TV. James was asleep on the couch in his school clothes. Chloe's car wasn't in the driveway. No sign of Veronica. I woke James gently. "Hey, buddy, where's your mom?" "She left around 6, he mumbled. "Said she had to run errands. Told me to order pizza." Errands at 6 p.m. That lasted until nearly 10. I checked my phone. No calls, no texts, nothing. That's when something inside me broke. Not with rage, but with something quieter, sharper, a cold certainty. For 23 years, I had been the responsible one. 4 years, I'd been the provider, the planner, the man who always did what was right. And what had it gotten me? Nothing but betrayal. I called Mike. I need to get out of the house for a while. Can you stay with James? Derek, it's almost 10 at night. What's going on? I just need some air. Please. 20 minutes later, Mike arrived, took one look at me, and didn't ask a single question. Go, he said quietly. I'll stay here until you're back. I drove without direction for over an hour, eventually finding myself at Riverside Casino, a place I'd only been to twice before, both times for company Christmas parties. But that night, the flashing lights and constant noise felt like exactly what I needed. I sat at the blackjack table with $100, telling myself I'd play for an hour and then leave. The cards went my way at first. 100 became 3, then 5. The dealer was friendly, the drinks were free, and for the first time in weeks, I wasn't thinking about Veronica, Dwight, or divorce papers. By midnight, I was up $800. By 2 in the morning, I was down $600. By 4, I'd lost $1,500, money that should have gone toward Chloe's college fund. When I finally left, the sun was coming up. My head throbbed, my mouth was dry, and guilt burned in my chest. Mike was in the kitchen when I got home, drinking coffee and reading the paper. Rough night? He asked without looking up. You could say that, I muttered. James asked if you were okay. I told him you were dealing with work problems. I poured myself a cup of coffee, my hands trembling. Mike, I think I'm losing it. What happened? He asked gently. I told him everything. The casino, the money, the empty high of forgetting for a few hours. He listened in silence, then said, Derek, you can't do this alone anymore. You need to decide what you're going to do about Veronica before you destroy yourself. He was right. The time for investigation was over. It was time to act. The next morning, I called in sick and waited for Veronica to leave for work. As soon as her car turned the corner, I went upstairs to our bedroom and began packing her things. I wasn't angry anymore. Anger was too hot, too wild. What I felt was cold, steady purpose. 23 years of marriage deserved better than deceit and hotel receipts. But if this was how it would end, then it would end on my terms. I packed 3 suitcases with her clothes, shoes, and personal items. Everything else, the furniture, the wedding photos, the joint accounts, would be sorted out through lawyers. But her personal belongings? Those were leaving my house today. When Veronica came home that afternoon, she found the suitcases lined up in the hall and me sitting at the kitchen table with Tom Walsh's manila folders spread open before me. Derek, she said carefully, her voice controlled. What's all this? Sit down, Veronica. We need to talk. She didn't sit. Her eyes flicked from the suitcases to the photos. Hotel security footage of her and Dwight at the Marriott. Credit card statements from dinners I never attended. Phone records filled with hundreds of messages. You hired someone to spy on me, she said, genuine shock in her tone. I hired someone to record what you were doing while I was working to support our family, I said evenly. The spying was just a consequence of your lying. Veronica slowly sat down, her face pale. How long have you known? I caught you in our bedroom 3 weeks ago. I've known about Dwight for a month, the hotel for 2 weeks, and his wife, Janet, for 10 days. That last word hit her like a punch. His wife. Yeah, the woman he married 8 months ago. The one who doesn't know she's married to a serial cheater with 2 DUIs and a bankruptcy. Her composure broke then. Tears rolled down her face, but I felt nothing. No pity, no rage, just a cold certainty that this chapter was ending. Derek, I can explain. No explanations. I cut her off. Here's what's going to happen. You're taking your suitcases and leaving tonight. Stay wherever you want, with Dwight, your sister, a hotel. I don't care. But you're not sleeping in this house anymore. What about the kids? She whispered. The kids stay here with me. And when they ask where you are, I'll tell them you needed time to think. Eventually, we'd tell them the full truth, but only after the legal details were settled. Veronica was crying harder now, but I pressed on. Second, I said, you're going to call a lawyer. A good one, because I'm filing for divorce Monday morning, and I'll be requesting full custody of both kids. Dare it if you must. Third, you will stay away from Chloe and James until we establish a formal visitation schedule. I won't allow you to disrupt their lives any further. The harshness of my words hung in the air, but they needed to be spoken. Veronica had made her choices, and now she would face the consequences. She glanced at the evidence spread across the table one last time, then picked up her purse and car keys. I never meant for it to go this far, she whispered. But it did, I said. And now we both have to deal with what comes next. After she left, I sat in the kitchen for an hour, staring at the remnants of my failed marriage. The house felt different without her, quieter, yet oddly lighter. When Chloe came home from her part-time job at the bookstore, she immediately sensed the change. "Dad," she said, dropping her backpack by the door, "where's Mom? And why does the house feel so weird?" I had been dreading this conversation, but there was no point in postponing it. Chloe was 18, legally an adult, and sharp enough to know something major had happened. "Your mother has moved out," I said simply. "We're getting divorced." Chloe sat across from me, her expression shifting through surprise, confusion, and perhaps a bit of relief. She had noticed the tension at home. "Dad, I've seen the fighting," she said. "You and Mom barely talk, and she's been acting strange, staying out late, taking calls in the other room." I realized how much she'd observed, far more than I had given her credit for. How much of our marital problems had we exposed to our children without realizing it? "Your mother has been having an affair," I admitted. I found out, confronted her, and asked her to leave. Chloe was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm and mature. "I'm sorry, Dad. That must have been really hard." "It was," I said. "But we'll get through it, all of us." "What about James? Does he know?" "Not yet. I'll tell him when he gets home from baseball practice. It'll be harder for him. He's younger and closer to your mother." An hour later, James arrived, dirty from practice and grumbling about homework. I asked him to sit with me in the living room. Chloe joined, sitting beside her brother. "James," I began carefully, "your mother and I are having serious problems. She's moved out for a while so we can both figure out what we want. We'll be separating." "Are you getting divorced?" he asked. "Probably," I said gently. "Is it because of me? Because I got in trouble at school last month?" My heart broke. "No, buddy. This has nothing to do with you or Chloe. This is between your mother and me, adult problems that don't involve you kids. You'll still see her regularly, and she'll still be your mother. Nothing about that changes." Then James began to cry, the deep, wrenching sobs only children can produce. I pulled him into my arms, feeling his small body shaking against mine. "It's going to be okay," I whispered into his hair. "I promise it will be okay." But as I held my son and watched my daughter try not to cry, I wondered if that promise was one I could truly keep. 3 weeks after Veronica moved out, I thought we were adjusting to our new normal. James began seeing a school counselor twice a week, which seemed to help with his anger and confusion. I rearranged my work schedule to be home when the kids finished school, establishing routines that felt stable. Then Chloe got arrested. The call came at 11 p.m. on a Friday night. I was reviewing divorce paperwork when an unfamiliar number flashed on my phone. "Mr. Hoffman," said a stern voice. "This is Officer Martinez with the Millburg Heights Police Department. Your daughter Chloe is in custody." My blood ran cold. "Is she hurt?" "No, sir. She's not injured, but she's been charged with vandalism and underage drinking. You'll need to come to the station to pick her up." I quickly found a babysitter for James and drove to the police station, gripping the steering wheel tightly. Chloe had always been responsible, a straight A, a student who followed rules. This didn't make sense. Officer Martinez led me to a small room where Chloe sat at a metal table, eyes red from crying. She looked smaller than 18, scared and ashamed. "Dad," she said as I approached. "I'm so sorry. What happened?" I asked, sitting beside her. Officer Martinez reviewed his notes. "Your daughter was with a group of teenagers drinking in Riverside Park. When park security approached, they ran. During their escape, they knocked over several trash cans and damaged a park bench. Security cameras captured everything." "Who was she with?" I asked. "3 boys from high school. We've contacted their parents as well," Officer Martinez replied. I looked at Chloe, struggling to reconcile this with the responsible daughter I thought I knew. "Chloe, what were you thinking?" "I wasn't," she whispered. "I don't know. I guess I was just mad." After completing the paperwork, we drove home in silence. Once there, I made coffee for both of us and sat at the kitchen table. It was nearly 1 a.m., but we needed to talk. Talk to me, I said. Help me understand what's going on. Chloe stared into her coffee cup. Everything feels broken, Dad. Mom's gone. You're always working. James is angry all the time, and I'm supposed to go to college in 4 months and act like everything's normal. There's no room for my problems. Her words hit hard because they were true. I had been so focused on managing our new life that I'd ignored the emotional toll it took on my daughter. You're right, I admitted. I haven't been paying enough attention to how you're handling all this. That's my fault. Those boys tonight, they made me feel normal for a few hours, like I wasn't the girl whose mom ran off with another man. Chloe, everyone at school knows about Mom and Dwight. Someone saw them at a restaurant, and now it's all over social media. I can't go anywhere without people looking at me or whispering. I hadn't realized how public our family crisis had become. Chloe was coping with humiliation on top of abandonment, and I had been blind to it. What can I do to help? I asked. I don't know, maybe nothing. Maybe this is just our life now. We talked until nearly 3 a.m., and I realized that my daughter was drowning quietly, just like the rest of us, but trying not to add to our burden. The next morning, I called the school counselor and arranged for Chloe to start seeing someone. I also reflected on balancing protecting my children with preparing them for reality. 12 years passed like turning pages in a book I never wanted to read. The divorce finalized after 8 months. Veronica fought for joint custody, but settled for supervised visitation once Dwight's criminal history surfaced. She remarried him anyway. I threw myself into work and fatherhood, determined to give Chloe and James the stability their mother had taken. Chloe graduated high school, earned a scholarship to State University, studied journalism, and landed a job at a regional newspaper. James struggled more, dealing with authority and abandonment issues, but found his path through college athletics and graduated with a degree in sports management. 5 years after the divorce, I met Delilah Wolfe at James' college graduation. She was a strong, independent woman who understood that my children always came first. We married 2 years later in a small ceremony, a new beginning for all of us. By the time James turned 25, both kids had built their own lives. Chloe married a man named Paul and worked as an investigative reporter. James managed a minor league baseball team in North Carolina. They visited regularly, but had independent futures. I thought the chapter with Veronica was closed. Contact had been minimal: birthday cards, awkward conversations, formal address notifications. She and Dwight moved to Florida 3 years after our divorce. Good riddance. Then, one Tuesday evening in September, 12 years later, Veronica appeared at our door. I barely recognized her. Older than her 51 years, thinner, with gray hair and tired eyes. "Derek," she said hesitantly, "can I come in? I need to talk." I stepped aside, curiosity and a residual connection to my former wife compelling me. Delilah, preparing dinner in the kitchen, appeared and understood immediately who it was. "I'll give you some privacy," she said, passing by. Veronica looked around, noting photos of Chloe's wedding and James' graduation, milestones she had missed entirely. "You look good, Derek." "Happy. What do you want, Veronica?" She took a shaky breath. "I have pancreatic cancer. Stage 4. Doctors say I have maybe 6 months." The words hung between us. I replied sincerely, "I'm sorry to hear that. Despite everything, I wouldn't wish cancer on anyone." "I need to see Chloe and James," she said. "Before I die, I need to try to make things right." I considered her. "I understand you want to see the kids, but I'm not the one to convince. Chloe and James are adults now. They'll decide for themselves. Will you help me contact them? I'll give you their numbers, but I won't influence their choice. They've built lives without you, Veronica. They've processed your absence. I know I hurt them. I know I hurt you, but I'm dying, Derek. Doesn't that count?" I said, "I'm genuinely sorry you're sick, but dying doesn't erase the choices you made or the damage caused." Veronica's face crumpled. "I made terrible mistakes. Dwight, the marriage was awful. He drank, became violent. I tried to leave, but I had nowhere to go." "You had a home with your children," I said. "They needed you. I thought you all hated me." "We did for a while, but hatred takes too much energy. Eventually, we moved on." I wrote Chloe's and James' contact information on a piece of paper and handed it to her. "But understand this," I said. "If either of them doesn't want to see you, respect that. Don't guilt them into meeting you because of your illness. Veronica took the paper with shaking hands. What about you? Do you forgive me? I considered it. I forgave you years ago, not for your sake, but to move on and be a better father. Forgiveness doesn't mean I trust you or want you back. I spent the next hour updating her on Chloe's and James' lives, careers, marriages, successes, resilience. She cried for the years she had lost, not just for her impending death. 3 days later, Chloe called me. I'm not going to see her, she said. She wanted peace, but I don't need her apologies now. James made the same choice. Both children had built lives despite abandonment and weren't reopening old wounds. Veronica died 4 months later in a Florida hospice. Delilah and I attended, representing our children. It was a small service, with few attendees, Dwight, some co-workers, and distant relatives. I felt neither satisfaction nor sorrow, just a sense of closure. 6 months later, Chloe called with life-changing news. Dad, Paul and I are pregnant. Her joy was contagious. My daughter, survivor of abandonment and trauma, was starting her own family. That's wonderful, I said. How do you feel? Scared, excited, happy all at once. But Dad, I want you to know, whatever kind of mother I become, it's because of what you taught me about commitment and showing up. Those words meant more than any achievement I'd earned. 6 months later, James married Rebecca, a high school softball coach. Their wedding was filled with laughter, surrounded by people who truly cared. During his speech, James said to me, "My dad taught me that being a man isn't about never falling. It's about getting back up and taking care of those who depend on you." Delilah and I have been married 8 years. She never replaced Veronica, but became a steady, supportive presence, helping us heal from abandonment. We moved to a smaller house, truly ours, free from the shadows of past failures. Delilah runs a youth baseball league. I volunteer as coordinator. We travel, read, and enjoy a peaceful partnership I once thought impossible. Chloe's daughter, Emma, was born on a sunny October Tuesday. Holding her for the first time, I felt a sense of completion, not about the past, but the future we'd built together. The gambling during my divorce became a cautionary tale I shared with James. Recovery isn't just stopping destructive behavior, it's building something better. At 56, I've learned families aren't defined by biology or legal documents, but by presence and commitment. Veronica gave birth to my children, but Delilah helped raise them into the adults they became. Love isn't about grand gestures, it's showing up consistently. Forgiveness is a process, not a single act. I forgave Veronica for my peace, not to restore her into our lives. Some bridges, once burned, shouldn't be rebuilt, and that's okay.